Thank you for listening to Fate Weaver, written by Elias T. Least. If you enjoyed this novel, consider donating $1 through Cash App to $EliasLeast. And now, Fate Weaver. Chapter 18. The Sorans. The night wore on, and the village celebration grew more boisterous, fueled by copious amounts of drink and the animated telling of tales. After the confrontation with Dravin, Cyrus had become the talk of the town. Dravin himself had been taken to the medicine house to be treated for his injuries. Many of the village warriors, eager to test their own skills against Cyrus, challenged him to spar. However, Cyrus politely declined each invitation, finding himself more captivated by the attention of the women who flocked around him. The elder, the first warrior, and most of the village men cheered as Cyrus was escorted to the mating house amidst much fanfare. The villagers embraced communal living, sharing not only their winter stores but also their intimate relationships. They didn't adhere to the concept of monogamy. Cyrus's time in the mating house was a testament to his impressive constitution, which was notably higher than that of the average man in the village. The women praised his stamina and enthusiasm, and Cyrus began to harbor hopes of fathering a child for the village one day. For one night, he allowed himself to forget the pain of his destroyed village, the family and friends he had lost, and the heavy responsibility he carried. He reveled in the moment, immersed in drink, celebration, and lust. Dawn broke, and Cyrus found the village elder standing over him, a toothless grin on his face. The elder's foot connected with Cyrus's ribs in a sharp kick, jolting him awake. "There are matters to discuss," the elder said, "and the day is wasting." As the iris of the sun opened above the village, casting a warm glow over the land, Cyrus knew that it was time to seek answers. Cyrus followed the elder to the elders' meeting hall, where he saw the first warrior and the older men that were considered wise ones. Cyrus knew that it was time for him to get the information that he had wanted. The elder looked at Cyrus with a serious air. "You are now a man of the villages. You have the right to speak in the meeting hall. Be wary. You will not find happiness in the answers that you seek. But as your brothers, we will give you what we have." Cyrus thanked the village elder and the others that were there and stated his request. "I wish to know what happened to the village under the shadow of the mountain 6 months ago. There was a storm and I was wounded. When I gained my senses, all was gone. Tell me, brothers, what happened to our family?" With a heavy sigh, the village elder looked to the first warrior, who stated, "There are things that are kept from those that are not yet men of the village. We protect their minds as well as their bodies. We try to keep the women of the village ignorant of most dark issues that we must face as well." A wise one spoke up. "They need to stay mentally focused on raising children. Women are not made to deal with the issues of men." Cyrus nodded in understanding, but was waiting for whatever the serious situation was that had led him to this point. The first warrior continued, "We are not alone on these vast plains. There is another species of warriors that have waged a quiet war for as long as we can remember. The Sorans, a species of nightmarish lizard creatures that walk upright like men, but speak a language of hisses and clicks." A different wise one spoke up. "They are much larger than men, and have giant beasts of burden with 6 legs that can pull entire houses behind them." The elder broke in at this point. "Sometimes we do not see them for decades, and it has been at least 30 years since the last raid, but this is exactly what one of their raids are like. They come in after some disaster that leaves us weak, like a flood or a storm, and take everything valuable, including the people. We don't know what they do with those they capture, but they are never seen again." Cyrus was taken aback by this information. He had no idea that there was a complete other race of beings that lived here, much less that they were at war. "Do we know anything about them? Where they dwell, how far away they are, how many are among them?" The questions just kept coming out of his thoughts, and spoken to the group of wise ones that were supposed to have all the answers. Everyone looked to the elder. "No, to all of that. We have never in the entire history of our tellings been able to stop the Sorans. We have never taken one captive, and there have only been a select few to even survive one of their raids by hiding. They are relentless in covering their attacks. We can only guess that they hail from the west, for they do not seem to harry the village of the Blue Forest, but they have their own unfortunate issues to deal with. The chime of a quest echoed through Cyrus's mind, followed by the soft words of Queen. "Greetings, user Cyrus. An exploration quest is available. Would you like to accept?" Cyrus stood up straight, shoulders back, chin up. He still wore the wolf pelt to keep warm, the regalia of an ancient leader of their people. "I accept." The men in the meeting house all looked at one another. The first warrior asked Cyrus, "You accept what?" Cyrus replied to the entire room, "I accept the quest to find these Saurons, and if our people are living, I will save them. If they have gone to the realm of the gods, then I will avenge them." Chapter 19. Don't get drunk before you level up. Cyrus exited the elders' meeting hall and made his way to the village supply house, reflecting on the striking similarities between this village and his own. He wondered if all human settlements on the plains shared such commonalities. As he strolled through the main town square, the rhythmic sounds of women grinding grains for bread filled the air. Familiar faces greeted him with warm smiles, and remembering a little of last night, he couldn't help but return their expressions. He heard that familiar chime and didn't know exactly what was going on, but he just remembered that he is due for a level up. That made him smile even bigger. That's when an arrow went straight through his skull, and he was dead before he hit the ground. Cyrus instantly dropped to one knee as the arrow whizzed by above him. He rolled to his left and ran around the corner of a nearby house. His brain was on fire and he couldn't think straight. He thought he heard Queen's voice, but the fact that he just saw himself dying moments ago left him disoriented and struggling to process the reality of his situation. As the fog dissipated, Cyrus cautiously rounded the house, surveying the street where moments before an arrow had nearly claimed his life. The women who had been milling about had scattered, no doubt alarmed by the sudden chaos. Though he hadn't heard the details of the quest presented to him, he felt confident in his ability to piece it together. Whispering, "Accept quest," he unsheathed his crescent moon knife, his grip steady and resolute. A gut feeling told him that the archer was likely a burly young man with a grudge. Cyrus suspected that he had successfully evaded the would-be assassin, who was now likely sweating and struggling to determine his next move. Cyrus, however, had a plan. He sprinted around the next house, mentally retracing the trajectory of the arrow to determine Dravin's likely location. As he turned the next corner, he was certain he would catch his opponent unawares. His foresight showed him a plethora of possible outcomes as he ran towards his oblivious target. There were so many ways to end this boy's life. Every thought brought a new vision to his mind. He saw himself round the corner and sliced Dravin's throat as he passed, a spray of blood cascading in a fountain behind him. He saw himself slicing his groin, and saw the stunned confusion on the man's face as he dropped to his knees, unable to think or move. In the moment of truth, he decided that he had lost too many of his brothers to make the decision to kill another. Dravin was still looking in the street with an arrow notched and ready to fly, when Cyrus drop-kicked him square in the back of the head. He had time to go through that move 3 times in his mind before he got it right. Success chimed in his head as Queen responds, "Congratulations, battle quest complete, experience distributed." Cyrus got up and walked over to Dravin, moaning on the ground. He looked down the road and saw several men running full steam towards them. They had obviously been notified of the assassination attempt by the women of the village. Cyrus looked down to see Dravin open his eyes before he gave him one final kick to the face. He sat in the dirt, a little winded from the experience but more tired from the lack of sleep and too much hardened wine last night. "Display," he said out loud as his status display appeared in his mind's eye. What he saw was almost as much of a surprise as the arrow that had gone through his skull. His level had advanced to 3, and now each of his attributes had went up to 11 with the exception of charisma, which remained at 10. He was now at 70 out of 400 experience points from hitting level 4. The skills that were listed in the display showed his extremely useful foresight and dimensional storage abilities along with another called minor creation. These were all wonderful, and he was proud of his progress, but there was one glaring issue. "Queen, what is this?" Cyrus yelled. "Why does my display look like I have completed my level and I put a point in Constitution? There are other things that are changed as well, but that Constitution point was supposed to go into intelligence." Queen responds, "Greetings, user Cyrus, this is correct. You have leveled up and placed 1 point in your Constitution. Your crescent knife has also been enhanced to increase an attribute point in strength. You also have a new ability called Minor Creation that allows you to create simple items out of the nanomaterials that compose this star shell. User Cyrus should already be aware of these enhancements, but I can sense the gap in your memories caused by copious amounts of alcohol. Did user Cyrus have an enjoyable evening?" As Queen ran through the advancements in his statistics, he vaguely remembered having her increase his stamina for a variety of reasons last night. Still, it was quite ridiculous that he allowed himself to lose control of his faculties over something this important. The village warriors rushed to Cyrus's side, their expressions filled with concern and curiosity. Cyrus quickly recounted the events that had just transpired, explaining the sudden attack and the arrow that had nearly ended his life. The men took charge, carrying Dravin to the medicine house for treatment, while assuring Cyrus that he would have a chance to testify before the council. As the commotion died down, Cyrus retreated to the visitor's house where he was to stay, feeling a sense of unease settle over him. He knew that the council would want to know every detail of the attack, but he knew that every moment counted. He had to start his journey through the plains to find his people. He did not have a chance to get supplies, and he didn't even know how long the journey would be. Queen responds, "Greetings, user Cyrus." "Can you give me information on the Saurons?" Cyrus asked in trepidation. Queen responds, "Of course, I am versed in the Sauron language and can give you details on their living conditions, food consumption, and mating habits, if that is what interests you." Cyrus smiled. "No, we will have plenty of time for that. I would like for you to train me in the uses of minor creation." "Can you do that?" Queen responds. "Information access granted." Cyrus's mind started to buzz with information, most of which he did not understand, but he could grasp that the entire world was made up of these tiny things that could move around and connect to each other, and they make everything, the bed and grass, and even Cyrus. Nanoparticles is what Queen called them, but the part that he could understand is that the system could make them move around and form different objects instead of the ones that they were. According to Queen, he could now tap into his access to the system and tell the particles to make whatever he wanted to a certain extent. There were a lot more things in this that Cyrus could not understand. Machines could not be formed, but anything of a specific substance was fair game. The information started to slow, and finally he opened his eyes, very aware of his new amazing ability. Cyrus concentrated on the pottery bowl in front of him and activated his minor creation ability. The bowl began to shift like sand, slowly moving at a snail's pace. It morphed into a cup filled with clear, clean water. He took a sip and smiled to himself. "It looks like I won't be going to the supply house after all." Chapter 20. The Amber Plains. For 2 weeks, Cyrus had been steadily making his way out of the dense forest, his feet aching from the relentless journey. As he trudged onward, the weather shifted from a biting chill to a gentle warmth, the sun's nurturing rays now enveloping him like a tender embrace from the gods above, a much-needed reprieve for his weary spirit. The memory of Dravin's attack in the village clung to him like a persistent shadow, but Cyrus knew he couldn't afford to linger and face the council. His people needed him, and every fiber of his being yearned to find them, to uncover any clues that might reveal their location. The mere thought of a council meeting sapped his energy, filling his mind with an all-consuming numbness. Dravin's fate held no interest for him. His only concern was to reunite with his loved ones, and nothing would deter him from that path. As Cyrus pressed on, the tall golden grasses of the plains seemed to stand sentinel, dwarfing him with their towering height. His feet, wearied by the journey, struggled to find solid footing on the soft, uneven ground. But today presented a new discovery. a wide, partially concealed trail amid the grasses, clearly marked by cart ruts and mud-splattered foliage. The use of carts was a novel concept in his own community, and the sight piqued his curiosity. As he followed the trail, Cyrus couldn't help but wonder about the people who employed these vehicles, and how they might differ from his own kind. He remembered hearing stories from village warriors who had encountered outsiders with carts, yet the notion still seemed alien to him. Cyrus continued along the road, grateful for the easier passage compared to his arduous trek through the tall grass. Although he still had to carefully watch his footing to avoid injury, it was a welcome change from constantly being on guard for unseen creatures lurking in the shadows. Under Queen's tutelage, Cyrus began learning the lizard language. The unfamiliar hisses and clicks that formed their speech were challenging to reproduce, but he managed to grasp the meaning behind most of it. He wondered how the lizards communicated over long distances, as their language seemed too quiet compared to the loud human shouts. Queen explained that lizards possessed far better hearing than humans, but their vision functioned differently. This revelation led to an entire lesson on the visible spectrum of light, and Queen eventually explained the true nature of the white dwarf star Cyrus knew as the Eye of God. Another of his people's beliefs crumbled to dust as he learned about the inner shell that rotated in a specific pattern, casting the star's light on the area where he walked in a 12-hour cycle. The impact of this newfound knowledge weighed heavily on Cyrus, causing him to question the foundation of his beliefs and the world he thought he knew. It was both enlightening and unsettling to realize that something so integral to his understanding of the universe was, in fact, a natural phenomenon rather than a divine presence. This shift in perspective opened his mind to the possibility of even more hidden truths waiting to be discovered, fueling his curiosity and determination to learn about the world beyond his village. After several more days of travel, Cyrus finally came upon a caravan of wagons that seemed to be of human origin. Horses pulled some of the wagons, while other strange, unfamiliar animals were harnessed to the rest. Intrigued, Cyrus cautiously approached the caravan, eager to learn more about these people and their unique companions. After 2 days of following the road, Cyrus finally caught up with a caravan of wagons he had spotted in the distance. Alongside the familiar horses, he saw unfamiliar, peculiar beasts. At first he worried that they could be saurians, but as he observed human figures among the group, hope swelled within him. Perhaps he was closer to finding his people. Cyrus knew he had to speak with these travelers, believing they might have information about the saurians and the whereabouts of his people. He considered hiding in the tall grasses to gauge their intentions, but ultimately decided on a direct approach. Prowling around could lead to suspicion if he were discovered, so he resolved to be forthright. Driven by determination, Cyrus approached the lead wagon. His heart raced as he neared the intricately carved wooden structure, clearly the work of skilled artisans. A woman with jet-black hair and striking blue eyes sat atop the wagon, guiding the horses with their reins. She regarded Cyrus with curiosity, her gaze assessing him cautiously. He hesitated, unsure how to proceed, but knew he had to try. With a respectful nod, he greeted her. "Greetings, travelers. Might I have a word with you?" It wasn't an incredible surprise when he felt large arms wrap around his neck from behind. He could tell that whoever his attacker was, they were huge compared to Cyrus. Their grip was so tight that he couldn't begin to put up a struggle. Of course, the chime rang in his mind, announcing that a battle quest was available. If he had the breath to laugh at the situation, then he would have, but his eyes were about to pop out of his head from the severe pressure. He stood in the road staring at a young and quite beautiful woman with black hair and serious blue eyes. He noticed that the eyes were looking behind him and not at him. He stated as politely as possible, "Greetings, travelers. Might I have a word with you?" Mustering every ounce of strength and focus, Cyrus instantly dropped to one knee and punched the large, dark-skinned man in the groin as hard as he could. The man's body tilted forward with a painful grunt as Cyrus came directly up, using all the strength in his legs to propel himself up, as his fist also raised and clobbered the man directly under his jaw. His combatant was at least 4 times his size, and Cyrus watched his eyes roll back in his head as he collapsed in a heap. Queen chimed in. "Congratulations, user Cyrus. Battle quest complete. Your experience points have been distributed." The sudden commotion had drawn the attention of the entire caravan. As wary eyes focused on him, Cyrus knew he had to act quickly to defuse the situation. Raising his hands in a peaceful gesture, he addressed the group. "I mean no harm. I only seek information about my people and the Saurons who have taken them. Please, let us talk." The woman atop the lead wagon, her expression a mixture of surprise and curiosity, studied Cyrus for a moment before nodding. She signaled for the others to stand down, and with that, the tension among the caravan members subsided. "You have incapacitated my personal guard. You will take his place for 1 month, then I will answer your questions." The woman spoke with an odd slur to her speech that Cyrus found foreign and beautiful at the same time. He wasn't sure how to react to this situation, but his decision was made easier for him with a chime that echoed through his mind. Queen responds, "Greetings, user Cyrus. There is a new daily quest available for a 1-month period. Do you accept this quest?" Cyrus bowed to the woman on the cart and stated, "I accept." Cyrus hoped this would be the beginning of a new alliance, one that would bring him closer to finding his people and understanding the dangers that lurked in the vast world beyond his village. Thank you for listening to Fate Weaver by Elias T. Least. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for exclusive original works from this author. All donations and proceeds from this work go directly to him. Cash App $EliasLeast. Copyright 2023.